Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before we get into it with our guests here today, well, first of all, everyone should recognize our guest. We have Shelace back on the podcast. She's on about a year and a half ago, so it's been a while. And like I was telling her before, like how everything has changed since this last year and a half. I mean, it's a completely different world, but she's here to give us an update on what she's been up to. And yeah, just like before, talk all things health and fitness. But most importantly, she is our current guest. Shelace, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I'm excited to be back.
Absolutely. Well, and I already asked you this before, but since I asked this to every single guest, what is the weather like in your neck of the woods in Nevada today?
It was beautiful. The start of this week, we had 80-degree temperatures. And it was finally looking and smelling like spring. And now the last couple days, it's just been rainy and windy. Windy's the worst.
I mean, I guess I'd take that over, like the really high temperatures and just it being muggy, but like it is here. But I mean, we're looking to get a pretty big rainstorm next week, so it's not looking that great either here. But hey, you get what you get, especially during May. But yeah, why
Right.
don't we just get right into it? So, I mean, obviously, you just got done in the New York Pro where you got second place, but what have you been up to since the year and a half that we last talked?
Yeah, it's been a crazy year and a half for sure. So last year, obviously with COVID, started prep in January and everything got shut down. So I was pretty much prepping all year long because we're like, well, we don't know when the next show is, if it's going to get canceled, and everything was canceled at the last minute. So started off with thinking I was going to the Pittsburgh Pro last year, and then obviously everything got canceled and ended up doing only one show last year. I did Tampa, and then school started right after that. And of course, anyone who's a parent knows what school was like. Anyone who's a teacher knows what school was like. And it was a pretty crazy year. And I knew there was no chance that I could compete and train my clients and try to pretend I knew how to teach in a pandemic. Um, so I just decided that, Tampa was my only show last year. It wasn't a great show. I actually ended up getting COVID during prep, not long before I was supposed to leave for Tampa. So I hadn't fully recovered yet. Um, yeah, Tampa was kind of it was my flu game. I told my coach, that's my flu game, my Michael Jordan flu game. And then, so yeah, then this year I started off excited to get it going, and shows were started to run again. So I did the Wasatch Warrior, which kind of was like a last minute on the schedule thing, and it was close to home. And so I asked my coach, I said, can we do it? Let's get ready for it. So did Wasatch, got second there, and then rolled into the New York Pro and got second there. So it's been a crazy year.
I mean, well, and first of all, how did you deal with the whole COVID thing as a teacher? Because I have teacher friends too, and they were just, just pulling hair out of their head, basically. I mean, it was just so frustrating. But how did you personally deal with all that being a teacher, along with just being a normal person dealing with it as well?
I am thankful that I didn't have a child in school at that time. I'm glad she's in college and out of the school system, really, because I don't know how they did it. Parents that were teachers, so many kudos to those guys because it was crazy. It was hard. It was so hard teaching middle school for one. So having multiple classes, um, keeping those kids separated, trying to teach math and science on a computer and in the classroom and 6 feet apart, and not having science labs and being able to do labs and not sharing equipment and math supplies, and trying to put all my content on technology instead of on paper. I felt like a first year teacher all over again. I didn't know what I was doing, and trying to learn how to run teams and teaching the kids how to run teams. And it was a brutal year. It was hard.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that must have been like, especially we've heard, so many stories like that. But how was your training like, especially during the pandemic? Because with the gyms closed in the very beginning and all that other stuff that went down, did you struggle at all with it? Or were you one of those people where, I mean, we've had so many people that basically just made home gyms basically, but how did you deal with that whole like early stage when everything was shut down?
At first, it was just here, and I was doing workouts here. I was fortunate enough that I'm an employee of the gym. So I was able, they did give me a key and the code to the security. So I was fortunate enough that I had that access still. It was weird going into a gym with no music and no people and pretty much being there by myself. It was weird, but I was fortunate enough that I did have that as an option.
And was there anything that you had to do when it comes to like the nutrition aspect? Because up here, I mean, I'm in farm country where, I mean, we had like meat shortages and stuff. Did you deal with anything like that?
Um, you know what? I didn't. I was pretty lucky. It was kind of funny. When stuff started to shut down in March, we were actually down in Vegas for a show. Had taken my clients to a show down there, the Samson Showdown, and things were like everyone was talking about, Costco running out of food and everything. So I got kind of got on Amazon right away, and I started getting stuff shipped. So we had stockpiled quite a bit of, I mean, as far as the non-perishable stuff for sure. And then I get Butcher Box. So I was fortunate enough with Butcher Box that I had the meat too. So as far as food went, we were all right. So didn't get us too hard.
I mean, how are you able to deal with all this mentally in a prep as well? Because a prep is as much of a mental journey as you'll ever face in your entire life. But with all this stuff in the background, how did you just come? Did you just have to like compartmentalize it, or how are you able to get through this mentally?
Um, it was, I mean, it was a struggle because you were still kind of in prep mode. Well, okay, me, I was still kind of in prep mode, and I know a lot of other competitors in that same situation. And you're like, well, I guess I'm going to continue to prep and work out and do my thing, but I don't know if it's going to get canceled. So it's constantly like, well, is it really? Is it really going to happen? Is it really going to happen? And then everything, like I said, was shut down kind of at the last minute, like 2 or 3 weeks before the show actually happened. So that was hard mentally because you were ready and you're in this deficit, and then you're like, nope, just kidding, it's not happening. And then, okay, so let's plan for the next show. And then, you're prepping, still going into a deficit. Nope, that was not happening either. So it was it was a long stretch for sure.
I mean, I could have never done that myself because I would just get so angry the first time they delay a show or anything like that, where I just be like, okay, this is just absolutely ridiculous. But since we last talked to you a year and a half, what do you think has been one body part that you've improved on the most since we last talked to you a year and a half ago?
Oh geez. Definitely my glutes. Yeah, definitely. That was kind of a goal of that and my quads. Like I didn't improve on my quads as much as I had wanted, but my feedback from the judges has always been my glute shape. So I definitely feel like we've done a lot of work there. I still feel like my quads could use some help. That's me personally feeling that way. So still working on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just with everything that's been going on too and stuff, it's just yeah, it's just amazing that they still even had competitors that still were willing to compete and stuff. And I mean that I mean I give them more power to that too. But with the workouts, obviously too. I mean, your training's got to be a little bit different. How did you mix things up over during COVID and even during this last year and a half? Because you're going to mix things up regardless if there was a pandemic or not. Really.
So I actually, because I knew the school year was going to be a challenge, and I knew I was going to need as much help and brain power as possible. I needed to take some stuff off of my plate. So I actually hired someone to write my programs for me. Usually, like in the past 4 years, 5 years, I had written my own programming, and I felt confident enough in that. But I needed to take something off of my plate for sure. So I actually hired Gareth, he's the fitness maverick online, to look at me subjectively and go, okay, what do I need to work on? I need someone to take that thinking away from me and look at me in that way. So I knew what to work on. And I truly believe that he has been a huge part of my transformation because just a different set of eyes on me and writing a program specifically for me and not me looking at it going, well, I think I need this and this, because of course we're our own worst critics, right? So um he narrowed it down to, let's just really focus on this and get this dialed in. So he has actually been a blessing, and like I said, a huge part of why I think my transformation over the last year has been so astounding for me.
How have you changed up your posing routine in the last year? Because that's something that's always ever evolving.
For sure. I actually got some help from Boyana this time, face to face. She's actually here in Reno with me. Anyone who's watched her pose knows she has great stage presence. So I just needed that face to face time. I'd worked with Sid in the past, and just because of my teaching schedule, and then from teaching, moving into training after school, and then my own training, there was just like her being on the East Coast, me on the West Coast, time wise, it just didn't work out. So I asked Boyana to help me. I did 2 sessions with Boyana, and I just said, I just need to feel more confident. I need my personality to come through. I'm not bubbly. I'm not cute. I'm very regimented. I'm very introverted. I think I said that last time. And posing's been my weakness. So I said, let's do something that makes me feel comfortable, that shines my personality and make me a little bit less robotic on stage. And so we definitely tweaked some things in my posing that I think definitely, I don't know, matched me and matched my personality. So yeah, we made some shifts in that, which did help because I didn't feel like I was doing something that was more someone else's personality. It was more things that I felt comfortable with. So it helped my confidence on stage for sure.
Which I always find fascinating because if you do look at the competitors, most of the time their posing does reflect a little bit of their personality more, and I've seen it myself. So that's great that you were able to have it reflect more of yourself. But I mean, let's be honest, that teacher sleeping schedule, I could never do it at any time. I mean, just getting up that early and just being that structured. But did you find that the pandemic actually might have helped you with sleep? Because some of my teacher friends, I mean, they got to sleep in just maybe a little bit more. They just maybe it helped them at least get better sleep. Was that something? Was that maybe a benefit that you might have actually had from all this?
Actually, no, because I mean, we went right to hybrid teaching. So when the school started, we were still in the classroom, and we still had to be there. So no, I still had to leave home at 6:30 in the morning to get to work on time. So I was still up pretty early. Yeah, I mean, it was at the end of the year when they shut everything down. Yes, it was a little bit different because they weren't allowing anybody in the school. So, yeah, my commute across the hallway to my office was really nice. But that was like the last 4 weeks of school or something. So it wasn't. No, sorry, no, it was the last. Yeah, the whole. Geez, it felt like so long ago. Felt like the
I
last
I
quarter of
know this
school.
whole last year has felt like it's lasted like an entire
Ugh,
decade. Really, I've been talking to people, and it's
forever.
like it's only been a year. It's like I can barely remember things pre-pandemic anymore. So it's like, it's just it's absolutely ridiculous. But when you were, I mean, doing these shows, especially the one that you did last year and the ones now, have they done like the? Because some shows have done the thing where you got to like wear the mask and do all that stuff, and then other shows are a little bit more, they don't care as much. What were those shows like that you did? Were they a lot more protective, or were they just kind of like, hey, just go do what you want?
Backstage, we had to wear masks, and then most of the time they were in hotels or casinos or whatever, and so we were still, as we were walking around, we were still in our masks, but on stage we could take them off, so it wasn't too bad.
I mean, like I've always told you, the smile is the one thing that I imagine was one of the hardest things to do when you're on that stage. So the mask might have been the one benefit of that too, where you wouldn't have to do that. But hey, they made you take them off. But I mean, yeah, just with everything that's been going on too, and with this lifestyle, I mean, has your time management gotten worse or gotten better? Do you think? Because I know some people that their time management was like perfect, and now they are just absolute slobs now. And I'm not going to name them out on this podcast, but do you find that your time management has gotten better or worse during this last year?
I honestly think it's gotten better for me, um, because I am so short on time of everything. So it has to be very regimented. And like I said, I still train people after work, and I still train myself. So it was, from the moment I am up in the morning, like every minute is planned out. So, and I don't go to bed. So I'm up at 3:30 or 4 every day, or every weekday, I should say. And then I don't go to bed till like 10 o'clock at night. So it's the very, very strict schedule for sure.
Are you just addicted to caffeine then, basically?
No, it's funny. My client says she called her daughter one time a high functioning, or she has high functioning anxiety. I'm like, I think you just talked about me. I think that's me. Like that totally describes me right now. But it was just, I mean, because what happened, Ryan, was obviously everything opened up at the same time, right? Schools went back in August, and then that's when like shows and stuff started to pick up too. So all of my client base, like they all started competing again, and then school started, and so everything just it went from 0 to 60 in a matter of a couple weeks. And so, I have students that rely on me, and then I had my clients that relied on me. So I was like, okay, I got to figure this out because I have two jobs right now that I got to figure out. So, yeah, it was just, I took a lot on all of a sudden.
How do you deal with all that anxiety? Because like everyone knows, like if you're anxious or if you're that can, have bad health effects on you. And obviously being in bodybuilding, I mean, you need to have your health on point. So how did you deal with all that anxiety? Because that just, even you describing it to me, I was getting a little bit of pressure like in the back of my head, basically, where I was just like, oh God, that just seems terrifying.
I cried a lot. Yeah, no, the start of the school year, I seriously, I cried a lot. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to manage this. It was rough. And that was because I didn't have the time management down. And so it did take me a while to kind of shift my schedule around and shift what I was doing. Um, yeah. So yes, anxiety played a part. But then there was a point about I guess around Christmas time where I just realized that I I some things weren't as important as others. So like as a teacher, like I don't have to grade every single paper. um, so letting go of a lot of that, because I'm very type A, and you know what, I'm like at this point where it was priorities, just realizing what were priorities and really managing those. And then like on Saturdays, like I would work on Saturdays, or I would train clients on Saturdays. And then I finally said, no, I need a day to myself. So I made Saturdays like my husband and my day, and I wouldn't work. Nothing. Everything was about us that day. So it helped just to have one day just to do us. So
I've tried that, but then I go about a half an hour into that day and I'm like, okay, I need to be doing something. Like this is just absolutely ridiculous. I'm just sitting around here doing. But no, I try to get a day in there myself as well. But yeah, it's just yeah, the mental side effects of this last year, I mean, far outweigh anything that I've been doing. But you did mention, because I say this every single time, that my legs are one thing that never really took off for me, and you said that your glutes have been one thing that's growing a lot. How have you been doing it? Because I'm basically writing notes from everyone that's had success with their legs, and I'm trying to incorporate them in me. So any advice, the better.
oh geez. I mean, I guess like, well, one thing, just having someone else write it for me, because of course I'm going to pick what I like to do in my programming, right? So, adding stuff in there that I wasn't used to. I mean, just a lot of different things, a lot of different techniques, a lot of different exercises I didn't even think of. So I learned a lot from him in this last couple months, last 6 months. I think it's been 6 months, but yeah, I mean, just exercise choices. Like I said, just exercises I didn't even think of doing before. Um, of course, the time under tension, going a little bit heavier. Um, Really, it was more just new exercises for sure.
Yeah, that's one thing that I always try to, whenever I meet people for the first time, or if they're like a trainer, is I always say, do you have any new like or do you have, what ways do you train that? Just because a lot of times, yeah, they do have techniques that you've never really heard before. But one thing I noticed when I was looking through your pictures is that you got like really, really, really lean, like really, really like late at the later that it was, like there was like a couple of weeks where like you just went from like 0 to like 100. Has that always been like with your journey, where it usually you may start off not getting that lean, but then all of a sudden you just have like a 2 or 3 week period where all of a sudden everything just changes?
It's so funny that you say that because a lot of people have said that to me. They're like, I turned around and all of a sudden you're super lean, and I'm like, I wish it was like that. Like, I guess I don't see it that way. I think it's more just, I guess, what I post on social media a little bit too, because I don't post all of it either. Um, But no, I don't know. I guess so because
Yeah,
you're
because I
not
was
the
just like,
first one to
I
point
was,
that
yeah, because
out.
I was just
So
scrolling through last night, and then it was like a thing from like three months ago, and then it was like 2 months ago, and then you were kind of, and then all of a sudden it was like 3 weeks after that, and it was like you were just like the way that you're looking right now. And I was like, oh my god, like how the hell did she do that? It's like we're gonna have to ask her that on the podcast. But yeah, I mean, some people they can do it really really quickly, and then others, yeah, it just takes a little while when they do it. But yeah, and
I mean, and it's funny because I mean, the only thing that really changes is I go from hit to steady state closer to a show. I mean, and occasionally we'll add an extra one in the evenings, but That's a great question. I guess I have to figure that out too because like I said, like I don't see it, but I've had multiple people say that to me, so
We'll
I have no
figure
idea.
we'll figure it out eventually. But I mean, you dipped your toe into it. But I love to talk cardio because it is the bane of my existence. And has your cardio changed at all in this last year? Or do you still do the same thing, or has your new coach kind of given you new cardio to do?
Well, I still so Damian still does my new from Pro Physique, still does my nutrition and cardio, and then Gareth does my workouts. Um, but so Damian, I guess the only thing that really changed was, like I said, I backed off the hit a lot more. I used to do a lot more hit than I do now, and then it's been a lot more steady state. So like my body, I think, just yeah, like steady state better than that high intensity and reacts to it a little bit better.
What's that like having two people do different things for you? Where you have like one who's like you're like your weightlifting, and then one that does your cardio and nutrition. Because like if you specify it that much, I mean, do they are the two people like in connection with each other so they know what to train according to like what you're doing or stuff, or they just randomly guess and then there's like, oh, I hope you're doing this much cardio then if I'm giving you this program.
Yeah, so they don't communicate with each other. So I kind of share with Gareth like my nutrition and what I'm eating, and I mean he can still see everything that I'm eating, and I tell him, hey, this is how much cardio I'm doing now. Here's what I'm doing, or how often I'm doing it, and he just adjusts my workouts from there, the intensity of my workouts. So I mean it's been different. But I think it really meshes well because like I said, I was writing my own programs anyways. So Damien was just kind of going with what how I look every time he sees me. And he's amazing. Like sending him a picture and he's like, well, are you doing this? And because this looks this way. And I'm like, how did you know that? Like that's so weird that you could look at a picture and figure that out. But yeah, they don't communicate, but it's worked really, really well.
And I mean, this is one thing that I haven't really asked anyone that this last year. I think I've asked it like once or twice, but like obviously people their bodies are probably going to be looking different as opposed if there hadn't been COVID, just because of some of the changes that have happened. But do you find that people have come in leaner, bigger this last year? Do you think that maybe they've not gotten as much as they could have, or what has been your thoughts on like just overall, like when it comes to the average person in bodybuilding? Because some people, I mean, I've seen that they've looked even better than they ever did, and I was like, okay, how did they even gain all that during COVID? But what do you think that overall people have gotten better? That COVID has kind of really helped them when, or not helped them with their progress.
You know what? Like thinking back on it and kind of reflecting on everything. So I know that other people were in my position where they had private gyms to go to and had that access, and then I know some that didn't, and made the best out of it with their home gyms. And so think a couple things are going on. I think the change in stimulus. So if they didn't have a gym to go to, then they're totally changing up their workouts and what they had to do, and their body adapted to that. And then I know the ones that had the gym access and still rolled with it. But I also think a huge part of it had to do with the less shows we were doing, the less we were competing, the less deficits we were going into, and it just kind of gave everybody's body a chance to chill for a little bit. And I think that played a huge part into it because it wasn't competing show after show after show or competing much at all last year. So I think that also had a huge part in it.
Yeah. No, and I would think that as well too. It's the more rest that you can get instead of just constantly competing. If you were to do like the 3 or 4 shows a year where you just have to be like that. But the last 2 shows that you got second place, which is amazing in and of itself. But what was the judges' feedback on your package and stuff as to getting second place?
So the first show, I was too hard compared to everybody else that was up there. Was the feedback I
That
got?
okay, I just gotta say that is the dumbest excuse ever. That's basically saying, yeah, you look too good on this. They're like you look too jacked basically on this, which I don't understand that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, they always say it depends on who shows up to the show. So that's who showed up to the show. And that one was a hard. That was a tough one. That was a tough one to swallow for sure. And then the second one, it was my glutes that I need to work on that tie in a little bit more because I definitely have a different shape than a lot of other girls do with their
Leave her
glutes.
alone with her glutes, everyone. She's been working
I
her butt off.
know.
She's been working her butt
I'm
off on it. And you still
trying.
still tell her like, yeah, it's not good enough. No, you got to keep working on it. No, yeah.
No, yeah, I get it. I mean, my glutes though have definitely their shape has changed quite a bit in the last 4 years. It's so funny because when I first started this, when I got my pro card, um, I don't know if I shared the story last time, but there was like a running commentary at the Pittsburgh Teen Collegiate Masters Championship. And I remember watching it online, and a guy had posted, and I don't know who it is. I still to this day need to figure out who it was, but like he did like a running commentary of all the people up on stage, and he said, whatever. I think I was number 313, suspicious glutes, and I was like, what the heck does that mean? Is he saying I have like implants or something? So like since that moment, that's been my tagline. I don't know if you guys ever noticed that, but I like hashtag suspicious glutes. And I mean, my glutes, they are a very interesting shape for sure. And they don't come down into that little diamond shape that everyone has with the little hamstring tie-in. They're different, a different structure. And so next to the girls that have that beautiful tie-in, they do look interesting and different. So I get it, but I'm working on it. So A for effort for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, this is just such a trial and error sport as well. And I mean, obviously, I would always love to ask this, being a teacher, how have your kids and your the students that you teach, how have they been dealing with all this? Because I mean, this has affected them, just as much, if not more, than it does the adults, just because people forget that when you're young, I mean, your social life is everything, and a lot of times they can't see other friends and interact with them. How have your students been dealing with all this, do you think, in general?
It's been so hard, Ryan. It's sad. It's so sad to watch these kids because not only are they masked up, so I think that's like a barrier for them already, like a subconscious barrier. But then they're 6 feet apart, so even if they did want to have a conversation, they still have to like yell at each other. So, um, and then even outside, they had to be 6 feet apart. At lunch, they have to be 6 feet apart. The tables are 6 feet apart. So everything's just been it's been a hard year, a really hard year, and it's so sad. Like one thing I would say is there's no behavior issues because they don't talk to each other. I mean, there's nothing. I'm like, I almost wish there would be because at least I know they're interacting and they're
Yeah, just tell them.
socializing.
Do any of you guys have any snarky comments you want to make towards me or whatever?
Yeah,
I'll give you guys 1 hour or 1 day just to like let it all loose, just 1 day out of the year or something.
for sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's definitely been better these last couple months. They're starting to open up. And we've talked about this as like my teacher colleagues and everything, like everything's doubled in time. Like everything's taken twice as long to happen. So like, building those relationships because we only see our kids every other day, that it's taken twice as long to build that relationship with them, to get them to come out, to really learn who they are. And then of course the masks and the distancing doesn't help, and all the rules of how we have to clean everything and the traffic, the directions they have to walk, like all of that has just been it's been a lot. So I mean, they don't even. It's really sad to watch, like now because we kind of are getting into like some group projects now that we can be 3 feet apart. Um, so doing the group projects and stuff, and like they just kind of sit and stare at each other, like they don't know how to communicate, and it's really sad. It's hard to watch. It's really hard
Well, that's a problem that I think the younger generations having already, anyways, is the not
for
being able to
sure.
communicate to people in the first place. So it's like, oh yeah, this. I mean, yeah, I do not want to imagine what the future is going to look like in like 20 years because with all that going. But hey, at least they're not going to need any chaperones at school dances or anything like that if everyone's 3 feet apart anyway. So I mean,
Yeah,
and not having to do labs, because I'm gonna be honest, I was the kid during labs, and I'm gonna be like, oh, what does this do? And that was me. I was that kid in class. So hey, that's a positive in and of itself, as well. But yeah, it's
yeah, I
just.
miss that though. I miss that in science because I was always one of those, no, we're gonna do science. Like, let's do it. And they loved science. And now it's not doing science anymore. It's back to that reading. And I'm not that kind of a teacher. So I'm like, oh, it's driving me nuts.
So what grade do you teach in middle school?
Sixth grade.
Sixth grade. Okay, I was just gonna say, because eighth grade, I just remember we built rockets for like the end of the year, and then we like launched them and stuff, and that was like the coolest thing I've
Oh
ever done.
nice.
I've ever done in like science class. Of course, I then decided to build like a mega rocket that was like 4 times as tall as what they told us to build, and it caught on fire right as soon as it took off. So that's just you got to go with the flow. But no, yeah. So that's awesome, and yeah, sixth grade. That's just an interesting year for kids in general. But now to go through it with
It
all
is.
this, I'm just glad that they're not seniors though in high school, because that would be the worst to me, just having to deal with all that and not having like prom and stuff. But yeah, it's just been an interesting time. But so like you said, your daughter's in college. She's still in college? So how has she been dealing with it? Because like my little brother graduated this last summer when it was hitting, so like he just stayed at home for the last semester. But what's that all been like for her?
I mean, she's been online
Yeah.
anyways. She loves online learning. She works a full-time job. So she's one of those that's pretty self-sufficient when it comes to teaching herself and time management and all that. I am not that person. I don't know where she got that from, but she loves it online. So she's been online even prior to COVID. So it hasn't been any different from her.
Yeah, I mean, my ADD could not handle that online. I tried it once, and after like 2 weeks, I was like, okay, I can't even. If you're telling me that I need to log in by a certain time or whatever, it's like no. But if you're telling me I need to show up for something, I'll be like, yeah, I'll be there. But yeah, that's just I tried it one semester and it was just a massive disaster. But yeah, it's just been interesting for everyone and seeing how everyone's reacting. But now that the gyms are finally opening up, well, first of all, how did you deal with this as a trainer too, as well, knowing that you have clients and stuff, and obviously people didn't want to go out and train. How have you been dealing with this, especially and now that things are starting to open up? Do you feel that like more people are willing to be clients again, or what has that been like too?
So actually here in Reno, we weren't closed down for very long. Um, I can't remember exactly, probably like 3 months. And then they allowed people back in. And their gym is interesting the way it's set up in that even at full capacity and or only limited capacity, sorry, it's still wide and spread out. It's like 5 or 6 different rooms. So it actually worked out great. But during that time when it was completely shut down, most of the time what I was doing was just writing programs for my clients because a lot of them did have their own gyms or rented equipment from the gyms that were renting it out and made it work. So it shifted from me training to me writing programs with the equipment that they had. So that was interesting, writing specific programs for each client based off of the equipment that they had. But it was fun. I learned a lot. Like it made me learn how to be creative. Um, and a better coach, I think, because of it, because I was, limited with my equipment. So how can we best utilize what you have? So yeah, it ended up a lot of me just writing the programs. I offered a lot of times too, like, hey, let's FaceTime. I can FaceTime train you if you want. And a lot of them like, no, you know what, I'm good if you just give the programs to me. So it worked out really great. And then obviously it picked back up. So and then the gym opened up. As long as we were wearing our masks, we were good. And yeah, it just like I said, August rolled around and school started and training started.
I'm just saying I'm not wearing I would never wear a mask, and I'm lucky that I have a home set up pretty nicely, but yeah, like I would never wear a mask in there just because I sweat so much when I work out. I'm one of those guys and like my breathing, so yeah, that's a no thing for me. But and the more people that did it, I was like, "Hey, good for you that you're able to do that." But I mean, you're a week or so out of your last show. What are your current plans looking like now for the rest of the year?
I'm going to do another show here in 9 weeks. I had a discussion with Damian and said, "So what do I do? Do it because I'm at the top of the points right now, tied with Latoya." And I'm like, "Do I hang and just chill and kind of see how the points go and hope I get to go to Olympia? Do I keep competing? What should I do?" And so we were kind of looking over the schedule, and muscle contest is coming up the end of July. So I'm going to roll into that and go down there. I love the muscle contest shows. Tamer and Tarek are great. So hopefully win that one or get a second place again and earn some more points. And yeah, I'm fighting for that O. I'm one way or another. I want to go to the O.
Just get all the leanest people to show up then with you then, so that the judges can't make that as an excuse or something like that. You
Right.
showed up too hard or something like that. Just get them to go. But so one thing that I've interesting about like 9 weeks for a show, because that's an interesting time, because it's like not enough time to really like put on size,
Mhm.
but it's not enough time to like really. I mean, you just really have to maintain. So how are you doing that over 9 weeks, just maintaining this? Because I mean, the state that you're in right now, I mean, that's not a state that you should be in for like a significant amount of
Right.
time. So how are you dealing with all that? Are you just sort of letting yourself gain a little bit for a couple of weeks and then trim it down again, or what's that process like?
So yeah, so we're slowly reversing, adding some calories back in. We actually did even after the Wasatch. I was down pretty low, and then from between Wasatch and New York was 4 weeks, and he fed me into that show a little bit too because I was too hard. So a little bit more calories, which is kind of nice because it my body appreciated the calories. So yeah, I just got my plan again and um, slowly reversing out for a little bit, and then um, hopefully, yeah, probably about 4 weeks, start cutting back on the calories after that. So we'll see. Cardio stayed pretty much the same.
So did they move the Olympia back this year to its normal date, or is it like what it was last year?
No, they actually changed it to October this year.
October. Okay, so like
Yeah.
if you win or if you're gonna obviously probably place in this next show, and so how do you deal with that break then? Because that's like a 3 month break, and that's even longer than this one.
That's a great question. That is a fantastic question. I don't know. Like I'm gonna tell you what my coach tells me all the time. What Damian says all the time. One show at a time. Because I'm always like, okay, what's next? Okay, what's next? He's like, can we just get past the show first?
That's the professional athlete answer in her, basically. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it's just one show at a time. No, but yeah, I mean, yeah, that's awesome too. But I mean, at least hey, it'll be in the summertime when you deal with that mostly and stuff like that, so you can, you'll have a lot more free time and stuff. But
that was actually my biggest question to him because point wise, I'm like, do I just step back and kind of see how the points start happening and then start looking at shows closer to the O so that I'm not doing these spread out preps like that. So like we ran through all of these scenarios. I'm like, I could do this and then wait for this long, or I could do this and it's a shorter wait time. We had that conversation for sure. And I don't I'm not going to leave it to chance, Ryan. Like I'm working my tail off to make it to the O.
she's
So
been doing glute raises and she's been talking to us like this whole time, basically. And that's like her one thing. But no, that is yeah. I mean, and the Olympias, it's going to be interesting this year, especially with the points and with people competing and stuff. And yeah, it's just, I mean, it's just this again. This is just one of those years. But hopefully by this time next year, I mean, everything will be back to normal-ish. And who knows though? But yeah, it's just fascinating. But yeah, so if we were to talk to you a year from today, because we will make it a year, we won't wait another year and a half. I don't know why we waited that long, but where would you like to be at in your journey right now if we were to talk to you a year from today?
oh gosh, well, that's a tough question. Well, hopefully we'll be talking about my experience at the O. um, well, I don't know, letting this one out. Like I resigned from teaching, so this is my last year as a teacher. So hopefully my coaching business will have taken off too, and you'll see a lot more of the iron and lace athletes out there doing really well at shows also. So I hope we're competing again, myself, and then doing really well with my coaching business.
That is wow. So you were yeah. So with teaching, so I mean, yeah. Hopefully you can get some more sleep now and
Yes.
deal with all that type of stuff. So yeah. Hopefully that's a thing. But yeah, that's just awesome. And I mean, being that you are a figure pro, a question that I ask all the figure competitors on is with opposing. I mean, flaring their lats. That is the hardest thing that I've ever heard from all of the figure competitors that I have on. So, what advice do you have for someone just trying to get that? Because we've had guests on here where I mean, it's taken them years to get that flare in, and then some people they're like just born with it, where it just naturally happens to them. What was your journey like that with learning to flare the lats, and what advice do you have for people that are doing that? Because I mean, we have some people who are literally any advice that they have, they still won't figure it out. But I mean, it's just they're like a deer in headlights.
Yeah, I think like I always with my clients that are figure competitors, it starts with the workout itself, like going into those exercises and okay, really feel the lat working. You're not using your biceps, you're not using your shoulders, you're not doing this. So once they get that connection in the gym with the exercise, then we can move to the posing and do you feel it here? Like imagine you're doing a pull down. Can you feel that engagement in your lats? So I always kind of start right with the basics in the gym, like close your eyes. We can't see our back anyways. It's not one of those you're watching in the mirror and checking yourself out. You really actually have to feel it working. So it's all starting there in the I almost said classroom, in the gym. It's all starting in the gym with just feeling it with your workouts first. But it is really really hard to teach people how to engage their lats, whether it is in a workout or with posing. Um, yeah, it's them. It goes back to them just having that mind muscle connection and learning how to get that mind muscle connection.
It really is just like learning to ride a bike, though. Once you learn it, I mean, it's so hard to
Yeah.
unlearn it, and at least there's a positive with that too as well. But yeah, and I mean, just yeah, there's just so many little things that happen with this. But being that you are a figure competitor, how do you think that the figure division has dealt with the wellness division becoming a thing now? Because I mean, it seems like that's a mix between bikini and figure, and some figure competitors might go down to wellness, and some bikini competitors might go up to wellness. How do you think the wellness division has impacted the figure division?
I definitely see a lot of people jumping down to there. Those the ones that don't have the nice broad shoulders. They're finally finding a home, which is great. And the same with the bikini girls, jumping up. They have the thicker legs, and they finally have a home. So, and I think the wellness division is pretty cool. It's been fun to watch it grow as much as it has. Yeah, I think overall, I mean, you can see it's growing and it's popular right now. I mean, you're looking at all these shows that have happened already this year. It's one of the biggest divisions, so it's kind of fun to watch it. But yeah, I've seen a lot of girls move down, which I think is great because, like I said, they finally found somewhere where, if shoulders and their upper body is that issue, they have some place to go now. So it's I like it. I like the division.
Absolutely, and that's really my opinion on it too. And one of the last questions, I mean, being that you are, a trainer, and especially during this pandemic, I'm gonna be honest. Like, let's be honest, people have put on weight. It's you can't. It's been hard for a lot of people. I mean, I put on my own personal like 10 pounds, but I've been slowly, trimming that away. But what advice do you have for people that are looking to just get started back into the shape of things? After taking like a year off of working out or a year and a half, just because that is, I mean, I cannot tell you how many of my friends are just waiting for right now, just to be like, oh, now that everything's slowly starting to open up, we can finally, start to take things seriously again. But what advice do you have for those people who are just looking to get back into it?
Going slow, like take your time. Remember that you're not just going to jump back into everything and go balls to the wall the second you walk in the gym. Same with your nutrition. Don't change everything at once, because I think that's going to set you up for failure too. Because I mean, we gradually got away from those habits. We need to gradually work our way back into those habits for sure. Get away from the processed foods. Let's start there. I think getting away and not having that access to your kitchen all day long definitely will help. And then yeah, just go back in to the gym, do your thing, but don't don't think you're going to start where you ended off when you left. Go back in, get in the groove again, and then you can pick up from there.
Absolutely. I've known too many of my friends that have tried to go full on Rambo and then work out just the way that they worked out like a year ago and stuff. And it's like, yeah, well, you'll last about 2 days then, and then you'll just die of. And it's been like that with them too, where they're just like, yeah, screw this. So then, yeah, it's just, and even just go for a walk, even if anything too. I mean, it's just start out really, really slow. And yeah, I mean, that's great. And that's awesome. And Shalace, is there anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap things up?
Oh gosh. No. I'm just excited to be back on, and thanks again for having me and reaching out to me and letting me be on here again. It's a lot of fun talking to you.
Are you kidding me? You're always welcome to come back on. And the fact that, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's an honor to have you on, and look forward to having you back on again. And is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Oh geez. Um, Gosh, so many. I've mentioned them already. Damian and Gareth. Huge, huge, huge thanks to them for making me the athlete that I am. Um, Physique wise, nutrition wise, teaching me so much, being great mentors to me. Just they've done so much for me the last couple of years, and Gareth just for transforming my physique in the last 6 months that we've worked together. He's taught me so much. My American Iron Gym family, that those the owners, the general manager, the members, they are amazing people. Every time I come back from a show, everyone's super supportive as I'm getting ready for the show. They're amazing, always encouraging. And then my husband, all the kudos in the world to that man. He is amazing. Like I could not do this without him, and I appreciate all the support he's always giving me to pursue this goal because it's not easy. It's not easy on a marriage. It can be, whether people want to admit it or not. It's a very selfish sport, and he's there every step of the way for me. So I appreciate him very much.
Give that man a monument already. Good God. I mean, dealing with her as a
Yeah,
teacher and as a bodybuilder too, especially in this last
right.
year, it's like, geez, and him dealing with his own stuff probably. I mean, it's like, good God. I mean, you got lucky with that one, I guess. But yeah, that is
I
that is
did.
that is awesome. And like I always say, everyone go and give her a follow on her Instagram page. I'll leave a link down below, and get in touch with her if you want any training or nutrition tips, because obviously now that she's done with teaching and onto that now, I mean, everyone, yeah, just get, and obviously we'll see her results from her pictures and stuff like that. So she knows what she's talking about, everyone really. So, but again, Shalace, I cannot thank you enough for coming back on, and we wish you nothing but the best. And I can't wait to see how you do at the Olympia, because I honestly think you're going to be doing great.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. Keep your fingers crossed for me.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, absolutely. And again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.